Okay, I would have had this up earlier, but I had to do some running around this afternoon, so this is possibly going to be going up very late this evening. We'll see. So, we have chapter 1177. Oh, I hear Chip coming up the stairs. Come on, Chip. Come on. Come on. Get the door open. There you go. There you go. I know. Um, my niece is downstairs or hanging out in the backyard right now, so he's probably going to go back and forth a little bit. We'll see. So we have chapter 1177 titled Fury. And we have a cover page that does not match this. We have a cover page that is the reader request of Robin planting flowers in a mole-made flower bed. So the moles have, made all these different holes, and now Robin's helping them plant flowers, which works great for Robin. She actually has like a little area on the ship that is her little garden, and then Nami has her Mikens, and then Usopp has like his pop green area, so it makes sense that Robin would like to plant flowers. Also, Hana Hana no Mi makes perfect sense. Also, my mom and I have finished watching season 2 of the live action, and we loved it. And the lady who played Robin did an amazing job. All the cast did an amazing job. So, into the story, into the chapter. So, we cut to Elbath West Village, which is, I think, where we ended last time anyway, which is where, like, Jarl is and where, like, all of the kids ended up after Loki dropped them off, and a bunch of the adults are grabbing the children. We see Colin, and we see Johanna, and then we also see Ronya's dad is laying on the ground being treated, because, like, they're trying to get all the kids inside, so they're not going to see what's going to happen in a second with the Zoro and his group of giants versus the Domi Reversi giants. So they are trying to get all the kids inside. And of course, the kids don't want to because they want to watch. And then, like, they're trying to get, like, medical attention for all of the parents and the family who got stabbed by all the thorns. So they're like, not good, hurry, we got to get them inside. And we see Colin and one of the other boys are just like, cool, the giant warrior pirates are fighting. And like one of the other giants is trying to drag Colin inside. I've got a bad feeling about this. Get inside. You mustn't look. And Colin's just like, oh, but I want to watch. I'm like, just go in the building, Colin, and don't look out the window. So then we see all of the Domi Reversi giants, and they're like, you've got to come back to us, chiefs. Unlimited strength and bodies that regenerate. Nothing beats this invincible feeling. It's so liberating. Which is, of course, the opposite. It's actually binding them to Emu and making them go against their own beliefs and everything for what it's doing. And we see one of them, I think this is Tallman, has taken his spear, his weapon, and he stabs it at Dory. By the way, Dory and Bragi, great, amazingly done in the live action. Loved how they handled all of that. Loved the additional references that we get now that we know more information. And they stab, the giant stabs through Dory's wrist, stabs through his shield and into his wrist, and it's just like, have a taste of our power, Captain Dory. And Dory just takes it like the champ that he is, and it's just like, you think that to think that the fiercely proud giant warrior pirates would succumb to this. And he's just gotten over being Domi Reversi'd himself, so yeah. And we see the others. We see Stanson, Hyrule, Dory, and Bragi. And I did miss this last time. Bragi does have his arm that got, part of his hand that got shot off by Emu did not regenerate. So now he just like has his shield shoved onto his stump. And they're like, shame on you all, you damn idiots, is what they're yelling at the other giants, at the Domi Reversi'd ones. Cutting away, cut to the Sun Realm near the lift where Chopper is with Scopper and with Kashi, because Oimo went off to go try to help his grandson. Went off to go do that. So it's with Chopper's group. And several of the Domi Reversi giants are actually showing up here. And they're shouting out, "Stop this! We're comrades. We've fought side by side. I can't bring myself to hurt you guys. Damn it, Rhodes!" So we have Kashi is yelling at the other giants that have been Domi Reversi'd, and we see a couple more of them. We see one of the ones that was the cook on the Giant Warrior Pirates that made a bunch of the food that Luffy ate, and then we see a different one. So, you know, we get this next shot of like Kashi trying to stand up to them with like Chopper and Scopper in the foreground. And of course Kashi is trying to protect them, but Kashi of course does not know that just, you know, if he does deliver a fatal blow that it'll reverse them out of Domi Reversi, but Kashi doesn't know that because they don't have a way to contact between the two areas. So what is happening is the giants are like, "You don't want to cut us down? What an excuse. Join us, Kashi. Having an invincible body is the best." And it's like, you can't bring yourself to hurt us, as if you could even if you wanted to. I dare you to try. And like Chopper is screaming, it's like, "I thought they all went the other way." And Scopper is just like, "Kashi, if you get caught between them, you'll turn into a demon too." And so Chopper is trying to protect Scopper. And it's just like, "Kashi, you've got to fight." And Kashi's like, "It's impossible. We've been friends forever." And that is, of course, one of the things that I have talked about. Chip is coming back. That is part of the thing with Domi Reversi, is that it makes it so you don't want to fight the people who are being Domi Reversi because they're your friends or your family or your crewmates or your, you know, innocent civilians or something like that that have been flipped by Imu. So it is that thought there that it's just like, it's that thing that's supposed to prevent you from attacking them, but there's nothing that prevents them from attacking you. So one of the giants is like, is like trying to attack them, and Kashi is just like, "I can't hurt them." And I'm assuming it's Kashi is going to get hurt here in a second. And then we cut back to the village where we have Bragi is talking to one of the other giants, and he's like, "Hey, Gantonino, we've been buddies for a long time, and you never change. Whenever you ask for just a bite, you always go and eat half of it." And he's like slicing through his friend, and he's using I don't think we get a named attack here for Dory or for Bragi, but we do see like the better angle of like his shield shoved onto his stump on his left hand. Go Oda with the left-handed thing again. And he's like slicing through this giant, and it's like, "Sorry, Chief." And then we have Hirudin going and delivering a Gungir through one of the other giants. And I believe Gungir is the attack that he uses to finish off Mach-Vice back in Dressrosa. And then we have Dory using Ikoku Sovereignty, slicing through one of the other giants. And these guys are just like right through the middle of these other giants. Like the one that, Hirudin attacks, it's like split in half. Dory just like big chunk cut out of him. And then we have Stanton using a gigantic drum as, beating through one of the other giants with his hammer, which is just cool. And then we have Zoro using a 3-sword style Red Ogre Mega Fury. Or like the translation for it was a little bit different, but that's kind of what it comes out to in English. And it's just like Zoro is possibly referencing this pun, referring to an idiom about a father's anger over his kids finishing all the rice. Onigiri is his whole fun setup there with the onigiri. The Red Ogre and everything like that. So we have that. And Zoro just slices through this other giant's head and slices it into pieces. So this is resulting in, of course, them being, all of them are getting dealt fatal blows. So then they are all being flipped back to being themselves. We see Jarl is off to the side, and he's watching these, and he's just like, "That fatal strike was a real beauty," is like what one of the other giants is saying. And it's just like, "Don't worry about a thing, guys. This won't kill ya." So they're like, going through a bunch of the other ones. And then Jarl's just kind of standing there watching this going like, "Is it me, or do they seem giddy about this?" So it is essentially them Zoro or the others are taking out their frustrations, because it's just like this whole thing of just like, if you have friends that all they do is annoy you sometimes all you want to do is strangle them, now you're getting to let your anger out on them and that type of thing against your cousins or your friends or whatever the case is what we got going on here. So that's what we got here, which is just funny. Then we cut back to Chopper's group over by the tree lift, the elevator by the tree, by the trunk of the tree. And Kashi is like being beaten down by the other giants. And it's just like, Kashi, run away, Kashi, forgive me, I can't. He won't leave them. And like Scopper's like grabbing one of his axes, getting ready to try to step in. And Chopper grabs one of his Rumble Balls and he pops it in his mouth. And of course, these are probably the semi-improved ones that he used back at Wano when he fought against Queen, and then he got shrunk down into like the baby Gramps Chopper, which is adorable. I think that meant, because I think originally it was like 10 minutes or 3 minutes, something like that was how long he could be in Monster Point before. No, I think it was like 3 minutes is what it lasts in the beginning when we first see it at Enies Lobby, and then later after the time skip, it's like I think up to 10 minutes is what he can do. And then now, because of messing with by Caesar, now he gets like, I think it's like 30 minutes, but the drawbacks are much worse. So he's, Chopper has gone Monster Point. Of course, this is the version of Monster Point he can control, and he just like, knock it off, you jerk, and like punches the giant, the Domi Reversi giant, and it's just like, haha, I didn't feel a fit. And then like we see this like shadow pop out of the back of his head. He falls to the ground, gets flipped, and is turned back to normal. And like Chopper's like, what the heck? And they're all looking down at him like Kashi is over there like looking down, and it's like, also Chopper is like comparable in size to Kashi. To be fair, there's a little bit of like foreground background going on here, but like Chopper looks pretty dang close to the size of Kashi here, which is fun. So we just see like them looking down at the other giant that just got Undomi Reversi'd, and they're like, the heck? And it's like, he turned back to normal. And just like, how? So this is probably going to be one of the things that a lot of people are going off for this chapter. So there has been a theory that I've heard that is that Chopper is connected to the forest god, because we know about the sun god is Nika, and then of course there's the rain god and the god of the rain, god of the ocean, the forest god, and the earth god. And there's this possibility that Chopper is this connection to the forest god, and that he is somehow, because of this connection, this tangential connection, that he is able to punch through this, and something to do with that. And the other side of this is like, because Chopper has the Hito Hitonomi model human. So there is this whole setup that maybe what ended up happening, what's going on here is like, since Chopper has this ability, and because his Monster Point is essentially essentially seems to be like a forced awakening for him. That or Chopper's awakening, he just turns into a man in a business suit. That'd be funny. But that Chopper's, awakening is like his full Monster Point to a degree, is like how he would be awakened. And we might end up getting a flashback at some point in time that shows that the forest god had like this similar monstrous appearance that Chopper has in his Monster Point. So there's like this kind of thought there in the community right now for like how that fits in together. We'll see how that all pans out. And to be fair, we saw this happen once. Could be a stroke of luck on Chopper's part, because we don't cut back here for the rest of the chapter. So this could have been a stroke of luck that somehow Chopper's punch was enough to knock this guy back, enough that it would have been like a fatal blow, and it knocks him out of it. But we don't know. Now we're going to cut away to outside the Owl Library, back with Nami's group. So the group that was attacked by Kiringham at the end of the last chapter. So we have Zeus here, and Nami is feeding all of like the black balls into Zeus, so he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so he can continue to make it rain. We'll cut back to him in a second. Then we cut to Kiringham's screaming head being held in Jinbei's hands, being held up by his hair in Jinbei's hands, and he's just like this screaming head. And he's just like, you miserable dogs, do you know the hell that's in store for plebs like you who dare defy the gods? And like he's just like screaming at them as Jinbei is holding him, and he's like, unhand me, fishman, you're filthy, blah. And Jinbei's just like, you bark a lot for someone in your position. Just like, you bark a lot for someone in your position. And he's just like yelling even more. And then Frankie is tying up Kiringham's like lower half, like his legs and the bottom of his torso. He's like tying him up. So like the way that it ended up being was like Jinbei, Frankie, and Sanji, they destroyed the Lindworm from the prior chapter, and then also they did enough damage to Kiringham as well, possibly in another attack, that did enough to break him into 3 parts, with his head in one area, his body in another, and his head in one area, the top part of his body in another, and then his legs are like on the ground kicking while Frankie is like tying them up. And he's just like, if we box him up, he shouldn't be able to reattach everything, right? And then we have Nami in the background feeding the black balls to Zeus, and he's like, thanks for the help, everyone. So they got Zeus out of the Lindworm, so Zeus is fine now. And it's like, I guess that's one way to deal with these guys, is I think what Nami's saying. And then we have Sanji, who is sitting on the rest of Kiringham's body to pin it to the ground that I think they've tied up as well. And it's just like, it's hard to believe these are the kinds of knights they have protecting the Holy Land. By the way, side note, I love how Taz Skylar performed the scene in the live action with him talking to Nami about his mom. I loved how he did that. How they did that scene, because it's like his mother is the person that he loved most in the world, and she was the reason he started cooking, and I love how they worked that into the live action. And it's like, it's not gonna mess up his backstory later. It does not mess up his backstory with Zeph. It just feeds into other things for why he started cooking, and I love how they did that. I love how they did it, because like at that time when we're first reading through the story, when this was first being written, we didn't have that part of his background when everything was happening with Nami being sick. And now we have this parallel much later on that we know about Sora and her being sick, and how for Sanji, Nami being sick and then on the brink of death is just dredging up all of these memories of his mom. And he doesn't want to lose Nami because she's his friend. And I love how they did that. So going back to this, I love the fact that they are essentially beating him the same way that like Nami and Luffy and Zoro beat Buggy way back at Orange Town, where they like separate him into pieces and then tie up his body. I love that. I'm so happy about that. So we cut to Frankie, and he's like, we've gotten too strong for him, Sanji. Luffy's an emperor now, you know. Yeah, you feel me? So I like this. I like this confidence that they have in each other and in the crew. But Jinbei's like, yeah, that's great and all, but it pisses me off to think that such vermin were allowed to terrorize Elbaf. And like, Sanji doesn't have the same relationship with the giants that like Usopp does, which great Usopp stuff in this chapter. He doesn't have the same relationship with the giants that Usopp does. But he still very much cares for them. Like, he did get to meet, Dory and Roggy on Little Garden at some point. He did get to meet them. And then, of course, he did get to meet Oimo and Kashi. And, so he's interacted with the giants, and he's gotten to see them here, too. And he's heard about, like, their giant culture and everything else like that. And, he knows about Saul from Robin and everything. And so, and he's also, like, just like that these horrible people have terrorized Elbaf, just caused so much trouble and pain here in Elbaf, just for their own amusement, and in an attempt to capture the children and then try to force the giants to be subservient to the world's government. Not working so well, is it now? And like, we get another close up of on Kiringham, and his face has kind of healed because it looked like it was kind of beaten up before, and it has healed a bit, but he still like can't get reattached to his body. So he was like, underestimate us while you can, maggots, is what he's screaming at them. And he's just like growling off to the side. And then Jinbei's just like, there's still one more who hasn't taken any damage yet. Don't let your guards down. Yeah, don't let our guards down. So then we cut to where Nami is talking with Zeus, which is like just off to the side from where these guys are. And she's like, Zeus, fires keep breaking out all over Elbaf. Understood. For now, just keep the rain pouring. He's like, got it. I'll give it my all. And that was like what Nami was going to have Zeus do anyway, was try to put out the fires at the school and the library. The school and the library are still very frozen, which we see in the background earlier. When we first cut over here, we see that area of the school and the library still frozen, thanks to what Lilith did in the prior chapter. So yeah, she's going to have, she's very worried about like the fires breaking out over Elbaf, so she's having Zeus try to put out the fires as best he can. Now we have Luffy and Loki and Ragnar showing up in the area, and they're just like, you know, all happy squeaky noises and laughter and everything like that. And Luffy's like, hey, Nami, Sanji, Frankie, Jinbei, and he's just like so happy to see them. And then Jinbei's just looking up at this, who has not been informed about what was going on with like Nami and Zoro and Luffy and going to the castle and getting the key, and then Zoro and Luffy going down to free Loki and everything. So Jinbei has not been informed of this, and it's just like, it's huge, like a sea king. It's like, yeah. And then Jimmy's like, what if it's with you, but don't tell me that's Loki. It's like, yeah. And then Frankie is just like, that's a buddy of yours? No way, that's so cool. And then Luffy's like, yeah, right, this guy's just too big. And he's just so happy. And then we get to Nami, who is having the more logical reaction here of screaming at Luffy and Loki, are you out of your minds? That's what she's like screaming at them. And like, Luffy, of course, is like, ugh, and Ragnar is just like, ugh, and then even Loki is a little bit like scared at being yelled at. To be fair, I wonder, because like Luffy has been yelled at by Nami and chastised by her and everything so much throughout the course of this story, so much, and I love it, and I love that is part of their relationship for how much she will chastise him and everything. So that's just great. Ragnar has not been anywhere near this woman, and now he's getting scared by her. And then now Loki, who I don't remember if we ever see Ida yelling at Loki at any point in time. I don't remember if we ever see that. I mean, it may have happened at some point. If he ever did something exceedingly dangerous, she may have yelled at him as, like, concerned mom would. But so maybe he's having a little bit of that internal flashback of just like, ooh, mom's mad type of thing. Or, ooh, girl mad. And so he looks upset. He's like, ugh. And then Nami is just chewing them out, and we're getting like the angry Nami face of, you've gone and made friends with another freak. I'm glad you beat the monsters. But seriously, that thing's breath is only feeding the flames. Don't you see? If you have to burn Elbaf to the ground to stop the bad guys, it defeats the whole point. So knock it off. I love how she's just like chewing them the hell out, and I love it. And then we cut to just like this adorable little panel of Luffy looking chastised and like, and then Ragnar is just next to him trying to like pat him on the shoulder like, it's okay. Which is just fun. And then Luffy just like turns and like yells at Loki, and it's like, you got me in trouble, Loki. And then Loki is just like, I just want to crush all the threats to Elbaf. Why the hell should I give a crap about your crewmates bitching? And he just like unleashes just like a very similar attack to what he did before, the lightning breath attack, onto Luffy. And Luffy's just like, God, I hope they play this the same way that they played the scene in Skypiea. And, like, Loki stops doing the attack, and he's just like, the heck? And Luffy's just like, oh, it's just lightning. And Loki is just like, why didn't that work? Why didn't that work? Why are you okay? Why are you not burned to a crisp? And it's just like, we know that Luffy is just like, he's immune to electricity because he's rubber. He's got the rubber ability, so he gets that, immunity to electricity. And it's just like, I should have sent you flying. It would have sent you flying if it did, is like what Loki is saying. And then Luffy's like, he senses something and he looks over. And now we're going to cut back to where Brook is. So cutting to center of branch 8, Brook's group. And Brook is shouting at Usopp because Usopp ran off from Nami's group following Brook and has now made his way to where Brook is, where Brook was fighting against Imu Gunko. Unfortunately, we don't get to see any of the fight between Brook and Imu Gunko. That might be something that either we get a little bit of like maybe cut back a little bit and get a little bit of a flashback of this fight, or it might be something that Oda gives notes to the anime staff to use or something. Because there has to be some, because I wish we could have seen something of like at least Brook trying to put up as a good fight against Imu Gunko. Probably not necessarily doing a huge amount of damage, but at least maybe doing something. And Brook is screaming at Usopp because Usopp got attacked by Gunko, who seems to have summoned a gun arm and attacked Usopp. And it's just like, please flee, I came here for my own reason, she's dangerous. Now we get this great, wonderful speech from Usopp, which I love. So, side note here. There is a project that I'm going to be working on. And part of it is like me rereading through the manga. And then maybe even rewatching through like the filler arcs and even the movies. And checking, because I want to go through and I want to find my favorite speeches or favorite lines. And yes, there's like several of them that are going to be in there. Like, you know, the Robin's I Want to Live speech. The One Piece is Real. Hero Luck speech, which did great in the live action. But like go through and find some other little hidden gems of speeches. This speech is probably going to end up being on that list. And we have Usopp here, who has been attacked by Gunko, so he is hurt and he is bleeding. And he's just like, who would run and abandon a crewmate at a time like this, Brook? True warriors do not run. And Brook, and we get a close-up of Brook, and he's like sitting there on the ground, or laying there on the ground, and he's been stabbed through the chest by Gunko. And he's just like, Usopp? And Usopp continues, like, Gunko Imu is just watching this, and he's like, I've always dreamed of visiting this place, to come to the land I've admired. I won't disgrace myself, not here. Besides, I'm burning with fury right now. Side note, I love how they handled the Little Garden episodes with, like, Usopp having to be the one to stand up to, you know, a Miss Golden Week and then have to figure out what to do, and defeating, getting the, you know, Nami, Zoro, and Vivi out of the candelabra. I loved how they pulled that off. But Usopp continues, like, Brook, these guys, they're looking down on Elbaf, and he looks up and like Brook, you know, Usopp is like missing teeth, and he's got like at least probably one bruised eye, and he's looking directly at Gunko Imu. Their gutless plan was to sneak here and kidnap children. They didn't use their own strength at all in this invasion. They relied on those monsters and hijacked the minds of all those proud warriors, trying to force them to slaughter each other. And Gunko Imu starts running at Usopp. Has her pitchfork. And Usopp continues, how dare you carry out such a cowardly and underhanded scheme, you shameless bastard. And then he gets hit by Gunko and gets thrown back. And then Brook stands up, tries to go after Gunko, gets kind of like hit with hockey beam or whatever. That's similar to like what, you know, Saturn had on Egghead or whatever, and gets kind of like paralyzed in air. Usopp has now pulled out his Kabuto and he's aiming it at Gunko Imu. And it's just like the warriors of Elbaf fight with their own swords and shields. They put their own lives on the line. They're a nation of warriors. If you want to conquer them, do it fair and square. And this great close-up of Usopp. Fight them head on, you spineless coward. And I'm getting flashbacks here to like other moments where we have seen Usopp just stand up and like just, you know, I'm getting flashbacks to that. And part of what I'm seeing is, hold on. Part of what I'm seeing, I have a prop. Part of what I'm seeing here is in the Stampede movie when it's Usopp standing up to Bullet. About Bullet, like, you know, criticizing Luffy and everything. And like Usopp there is like, I'm a sniper. I'm here to back up my captain. And, you know, he's kind of the linchpin that helps with, hi, Boo. You can come in. Chip, come here. Come on. Come on. You can come in. I know, you're a good baby. I don't have much left to go. It's going to be a semi-short review. Hi, yes, I know. And So it's just kind of reminding me of that scene in Stampede where it's Usopp standing up against Bullet, and then him helping with giving Luffy the opening that he needed. And Gunko is just staring at Usopp, and she's like, a dominant ruler never sullies their own hands. So many things can be said about that, because at various points in time, there have been so many kings who were horrible kings, but at the very least, they were out there on their, actually out fighting themselves for trying to get their land or for their cause or whatever. And then there's other ones that are just like, they try the peaceful route, or they're the ones staying in the castle while everybody else is doing the fighting. Take your pick. Gunko Imu lands in that category. And Usopp fires his skull bomb grass at Gunko, which of course did damage to Gunko earlier, but Gunko just zoops forward to Usopp, so it essentially blocks the attack. And the attack still goes off, the skull bomb grass does go off, and it hits Usopp, so we get like the big, mushroom cloud skull. And Usopp is knocked to the ground, because he got like a full force of the attack. Brook gets knocked to the ground, got full force of the attack. Gunko is crickling back together, because they got the full force of the attack, but they have regeneration ability, so they're fine. And then we have the final double page spread of this chapter. Is this the only double page spread in this chapter? I think so. But we get the final 2 pages of the chapter for the double page spread. And it's Luffy and Loki have shown up at where they sent Gunko, and Luffy went looking for Usopp and Brook. And Luffy is just like, oh, Brook, Usopp, because he's very worried about his friends. And he jumps down to check on them, to see them on the ground. And then Loki is just staring down at Gunko Imu, and it's like, it's her. She's the source of the Haki we felt down in the realm of the dead. And Luffy's looking at Usopp and Brook, who are just passed out cold at this point in time, I'm sure of it. And Luffy's like, hey Loki, I'm really pissed now. And it is saying something when you can get Luffy angry. It is saying something when you can get Luffy angry. When you do enough to make him angry. It's hard to do, but this is definitely more than enough to get Luffy angry. You have attacked his crew. You have attacked an island that is innocent. You have taken children as hostages. That is plenty of stuff for Luffy to be angry about to this level. And Loki is just like, I wasn't planning on letting these guys off the hook anyway. So Loki is just going to get ready to try to, I guess, barbecue Gunko Imu. We'll see how that goes. Because we still don't have the Gunko Brook stuff resolved yet. Princess Shuri stuff resolved yet. Where did you go? Oh. No, you're okay. You're okay. I did not mean to spook you. Sorry. But we get the last panel of the chapter, and it's this close-up of Gunko Imu. And it's Nika, Needhog, submit or perish. This battle shall divide the world. So there is this thought about whether or not Nika and Needhog had been allies before. To be fair, that doesn't mean that their current incarnations can't be allies even if they were enemies in the past. Doesn't mean that they can't be enemies now if they were allies in the past. It doesn't have to fit the same way all the time. As much as the ABBA song is correct that the history book on the shelf is always repeating itself. Citation from the song Waterloo. That Gunko is you submit to me or perish. Submit or you will be killed. I'm like, we'll see what happens, but we finally have Luffy kind of face to face with Imu. Face to possessed face with Imu. So we'll see how that ends up playing out in the next chapter. I don't think there's a break next week, so that'll be nice. It's a bit shorter than I usually do for reviews, but I think I got through what I needed to here. The only other bit was I kind of hope that they do how they play this in the anime when they get around to it, when Luffy gets hit by Loki's attack, that we kind of have a little bit of the NL face a little bit on Dragon Loki, just to see that look of him being like, How did you not get hurt by my electricity? What happened there? How did you do that? Type of thing. So I believe that's all we have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.